everyone. Welcome to Thursday's morning prayer reading and thoughts. I've been sticking with Exodus for a while, as you know, and I really feel that I've come to the end of what I can say about the plagues. It's such a fascinating story. Nobody's absolutely sure quite how it happened, quite whether it happened. There isn't a great deal of archaeological evidence for the Hebrews being in Egypt, but I was thinking this morning, Jesus based a lot of what he said and what he taught on the Old Testament, on the Old Testament stories. And Moses is one of the great heroes of the Jewish faith. And I would be very reluctant to discount that story, even if it's been embroidered perhaps over time. Anyway, had our plagues, the ones that beset the Hebrews anyway. We've got our own plague at the moment, and maybe that's enough for the moment. So I recommend that you read the story of the liberation of the Hebrews from Egypt, and perhaps you'd like to go all the way to the end of the book of Exodus, because it's really quite a readable book, I think, and it gives us the whole of the early history of the Jewish nation. But today I'm turning to Hebrews. Yesterday, you may remember, I said I had been tempted. It wasn't yesterday, was it? It was Tuesday, actually. I had been tempted by an extract from Hebrews, the one where it talked about the cloud of witnesses. And I love that feeling of being surrounded by those who share our faith. It is like the family of God almost coming around for a group hug. And we're a bit short of hugs at the moment, aren't we? We love hugging in our church of St. Mark's, or at least many of us do, and I miss those hugs. I really need them. I am getting a few at home, you'll be glad to know, and I hope you are as well. So anyway, I am turning to Hebrews today, and I'll talk a little bit more about it when I've read the passage. You may want to stop your recording for a moment while you find it. It's Hebrews 12, verses 14 to the end, so we're almost at the very end of the letter. Have you found it? Or maybe you're just going to listen. Let's start our reading. Pursue peace with everyone, and the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and through it many become defiled. See to it that no one becomes like Esau, an immoral and godless person who sold his birthright for a single meal. You know that later, when he wanted to inherit the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no chance to repent, even though he sought the blessing with tears. You have not come to something that can be touched, a blazing fire and darkness and gloom and a tempest and the sound of a trumpet, and a voice whose words made the hearers beg that not another word be spoken to them. For they could not endure the order that was given, if even an animal touches the mountain, it shall be stoned to death. Indeed, so terrifying was the sight that Moses said, I tremble with fear. But you have come to Mount Zion, and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to innumerable angels in festal gathering, and to the assembly of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven, and to God the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. See that you do not refuse the one who is speaking. For if they did not escape when they refused the one who warned them on earth, how much less will we escape if we reject the one who warns from heaven? At that time his voice shook the earth. But now he has promised, yet once more I will shake not only the earth but also the heaven. This phrase, yet once more, indicates the removal of what is shaken, that is, created things, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, let us give thanks, by which we offer to God an acceptable worship with reverence and awe. For indeed, our God is a consuming fire. Here ends our reading. There are so many gaps in my biblical knowledge, and the letter to the Hebrews is one of them. So I've just reread it, all 13 chapters, and I feel so glad that I have. I would never assume that any of you is as ill-read as I am, but if you haven't read Hebrews recently, I would wholeheartedly commend it to you. I confess I had rather retained an impression of the letter as rather stuffy, unnecessarily tortuous and complex. Well, I was just plain wrong. I actually found myself nodding and smiling as I came across passage after passage which was not only familiar to me from many of the literatures that we use regularly, but which rang so true, which really boosted my faith. There are a few elements in the letter which may deter the modern reader, particularly references to Melchizedek, but even those are explained in chapter 7. The letter is intended for Jews who have become Christians but who are now beginning to waver, partly because they are enduring persecution for their abandonment of Jewish practices and assemblies, and partly because the risen Jesus does not conform to their expectation of him. He has not returned as a warrior king in the mould of David, ready to restore Israel to its former glory. And he's late in appearing. The common belief among Christians, including Paul at first, was that Jesus would shortly return to earth to take his followers with him into the eternal kingdom. Well, a question we always ask, particularly of a letter which is so focused on the times in which it was written, is, well, what's in it for us? Well, a huge amount, I think, is surely the answer. Although almost certainly not written by Paul, it is as good an exposition of who Jesus Christ is as anything which Paul wrote. It is scholarly, but I would insist it's also clear. We 21st century Christians are unlikely to be lured back into Judaic practices, as was the case in the late 1st century Judah, although adherence to Mormonism and the Jehovah's Witnesses do rather fall into that camp, I feel. But we can be lured away from the Christian faith by other things. Will our church-going habit be broken, do you think, by months of being unable to gather together in St. Mark's? Will the habit of a less pressured Sunday morning be difficult to break? I think there may be a temptation there, if only to be less regular than formerly. Will other things take over to the point of excluding our worship of God, even if those things seem in themselves harmless or even beneficial? Shopping, exercising, learning and practicing a new skill. All things which can be done at other times, but which seem inviting on Sunday morning sometimes. I'm praying we'll all resist such temptations and will, in due time, take delight in meeting together once more in our beloved church, where we can be a family in the fullest sense. From our particular part of Hebrews this morning, I love the writer's advice on how to remain a good church. We can leave out the Old Testament comparisons, I think. These were aimed at those who had been brought up in the Jewish faith. Even if we just took the first few words, pursue peace with everyone, and made those our watchword, we would maintain the happy, loving fellowship which characterizes our church, and which people from outside comment favourably on. But peace needs constant effort, constant intentionality. And what I mean by that is analysing those people and those things which are likely to make us forget to be peaceful and loving. And we all know that such challenges exist. We're all different. We empathise more with some of our family members than with others, and that's fine, that's natural. We just need to make an extra effort in such circumstances rather than giving way to the satisfaction of indulging unkind thoughts or words. We need to try to see the good in everyone and to forgive the things which irritate us, as we hope they will for us. The writer reminds us of the priceless gift God has bestowed on us, the gift of Jesus Christ, his only Son, sacrificed for us so that all our sin is purged. As I said a few days ago when I was talking about Moses, our relationship with God is totally different from the one the Hebrews had all those thousands of years ago. We are invited to be close to him, called to the assembly of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven, to the great family celebration. We may not feel very much like celebrating at the moment. These are dark times, and we can't pretend that they aren't. But we have a hope that most of our fellow citizens deny themselves, the hope in something more precious even than this wonderful life, the hope of a home with Jesus in a world where COVID-19 or any other scourge has no place, and where healing of every ill, physical or emotional, mental or spiritual, is total and irreversible. Thanks be to God. Praised be Jesus Christ. Amen. Thanks for being with me again. I'm back again tomorrow, but next week will be different. We're not going to try and do morning prayer and do a compline in the evening, because frankly I think that'll just be a bit too much for us. So there's no morning prayer from us next week, but there is compline, which is a night prayer, as you know, and it will be up on the on YouTube, I think from relatively early on the appropriate day. So there's one each for Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday evenings, different people each time, and then a great treat for us, and I'm so delighted about this. Jane is going to lead us in a Maundy Thursday communion in the evening. That again is something that you'll be able to watch at any time, but I suggest that you do it in the evening, sometime, shall we say, after about 7:30, because it is an evening service, and I think it will feel better if the sun is beginning to go down. And for that, you will need to have, if you feel that this would be helpful to you, some bread and either wine or some other drink that you in your own home can administer either to yourself if you're on your own, or to one another if there's more than one of you. And the celebration of Holy Communion from a priest's home has just been authorised temporarily by our bishop. So it's all perfectly right, and it will be happening, I imagine, in many churches throughout the country. So that's on Maundy Thursday. And then on Good Friday morning, I will be giving a meditation which will be rather longer than morning prayer. I haven't written it yet, but I hope that you will be able to join me for something like half an hour, when there will be plenty of time for silence and for meditating on the passion of our Lord and what it has brought us. More of what will be going on will be in your notice sheets, which will be sent out to you by Maggie relatively soon. But in the meantime, I look forward to being with you tomorrow. Bye bye.